Mr. Speaker, thank you. More troubling news for parents on the issue of school fees has just come to light. The Calgary Board of Education revealing that it collected $2.8 million more than it needed to in transportation fees last year. So in other words, parents paid nearly $3 million more out of their pockets than they had to for busing fees. To the Education Minister, does this concern you, and what would you propose you do about it?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yeah, it's a little bit concerning, but I would suggest the Minister talk to the Honourable Member talk to the CBE about it. My understanding is when their budgets come back, and keep in mind they're running about a $1.2 billion budget, when their budgets come back and if there's any surpluses, they get invested in the transportation budget in the following year, so it goes right back in to eliminate fees that parents would have to pay in the future.
Honourable Member.
And here I thought the government's job was to represent Albertans, Mr. Speaker. Given that this is the same school board that has a collection agency chasing 3,000 sets of parents for unpaid fees, can the minister understand that parents are starting to get confused as to which fees are actually legitimate and which aren't? Can you understand parents' frustration on this issue?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the frustrating part of this issue is the flip-flops from the members of the opposite aisle here. Here, let me read you a quote from an article that was published by their leader. They can find ways to live within the resources taxpayer already devote to education, or they can pay for these extras themselves. And out of the same article, user fees are precisely what's needed. This is what the leader of the opposition wrote. And then a few nights ago, the member from Innisfail, Sylvan Lake, said Albertans never should have to pay a mandatory fee for anything. So I'm not sure what the policy is from across the aisle, but I'll tell you what we want to do, and we want to have a dialogue with parents. And that's why we've put the ability of the Education Act to deal with this and regulate.
Honourable Member.
Mr. Speaker, I see why it's called question period, not answer period. Anybody watching knows you have no intention of answering the question. Given this government wastes hundreds of thousands of dollars on unused hotel rooms, given the government spends billions of dollars on private projects that we don't need to, could it be, Mr. Speaker, that the government is shortchanging boards by mixing up its priorities and not allowing boards to do what they need to do and, in effect, punishing parents with hidden fees?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure if that was a spending question or a cutting question.
Neither is he.
But on one hand, we're being told there's a surplus that we've got to deal with, and on the next hand, we're underfunding education. Mr. Speaker, we put a lot of trust in teachers and in school boards every day, and they're entrusted locally to make those decisions. We think that school fees is something that we do need to discuss, and that's why we put right in the Education Act that the minister's got the ability to set regulations around those fees, and we want to go out and talk to parents about that. And I think that's where we should be having this discussion and not in the Assembly.